So a lot of times people don't pay attention to just how much we're not breathing. We're tense, we're tight, we're holding our breath, we're pausing, we're not really breathing, and we're also not slowing down. So when you do a breathwork practice, you're combining both and you're giving the body the chance to recover and heal itself. And that's a lot of why the box breathing or the slow breathing or the apps are so popular, because it's a short term, like little boost in your mood and your energy, just by oxygenating yourself properly. But when you do the longer journeys, there's more magic that happens in that the extended period of time with all of the oxygenation, it allows your body to just rest and literally reset. So by breathing in that pattern, not only do we have all this massive push of hormones that begin flowing through your body to make you feel good, but your system and your organs start to respond in a way of releasing all of the programming and all of the stress and the anxiety and the energy that we hold so tightly within ourselves just starts to literally dissolve and let go.
The month of May holds a very special place in my heart. It's the month recognized as the Mental Health Awareness Month, mostly in North America, but it's spreading across the world. So for the month of May, we are honored to partner with Mission Save a Life, a new force in the fight against mental health stigma and suicide. Through education and advocacy, they're sparking conversations that lead to positive change. Are you ready to join the conversation? Take the first step by visiting missionsavealife.org. Join our community, share your voice, and let's amplify the message of mental health awareness and suicide prevention. Together, we can be the change. And yes, you are not alone, and we're all here to support. No judgment, just love. Hello, beautiful people. I'm here with Jessica Brace, and she's one of my dear friends. Now, Jessica is a transformational guide for life and business, and she's a certified breathwork guide. And a lot of what we'll talk today will be around her amazing breathwork, how she transforms people through a simple practice, in how it appears to the outside, but there's so much going in. And of course, we're going to dive deeper into how this relates to mental health and how, by again, simply looking at our breathwork and beyond, we can improve our mental health, emotional health, spiritual health, and of course, physical health as well. So Jessica, welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you.
Jessica, I'll start with saying to those that don't know in the audience right now that Jessica and I met last year at what I would call a random event. And then I got a chance to participate in Jessica's amazing breathwork, and it began a transformation for my life. So I wanted to bring her on stage here so we can have a conversation as to why breathwork is so transformational. So that's the question just for you. First of all, why is breathwork so transformational yet so underrated, perhaps?
I think it's underrated mostly because there's a confusion on the different types of breathwork. So most people think, oh, breathwork is, I have that like calm breathing, like the box breath, and I have an app that will teach me how to relax and calm. And that's the good stuff on breathwork, the simplicity of it. But then there's a whole nother layer to it of what's called a breathwork journey, which is an experience where you breathe in a circular pattern for an extended period of time. And what ends up happening is you hyperoxygenate your body, and all this magic starts to happen when you have that much oxygen. But most importantly, all of your feel-good hormones, the serotonin, the oxy, and the DMT just drop into your bloodstream naturally just by breathing, and you end up going on a deep journey within. And so a lot of people aren't familiar with the process of breathing and what that can do for you if you just push it a little bit farther beyond just a few minutes of box breath.
Yeah, because I remember when we did the first one, it blew me away because I remember you're like, yeah, this is going to take an hour and a half, however long it was going to take. And I'm like, what do you mean? I've never been able to do a breathing exercise beyond like 5 minutes at a time. And I was like, to do it for an hour and a half. And then all of a sudden, an hour and a half later, I was like, wow, this is amazing. And it's different, right? Because you breathe through your mouth, you exhale through your mouth. For most of us anyway, I know you do it through the nose for those that have complications or other
Yeah.
issues. But I'm curious to see. I mean, you've done this for a while now, and I personally have seen so many amazing results from it, and the people that have done this. But tell us a bit about some of the benefits that people can experience from doing a breathwork journey.
Sure. Well, right away, just the increased oxygen, it drops all these hormones. And so you feel good, you feel better. It also helps with inflammation. You have increased focus because your cells are properly oxygenated. We go about life as shallow breathers. So a lot of times people don't pay attention to just how much we're not breathing. We're tense, we're tight, we're holding our breath, we're pausing, we're not really breathing, and we're also not slowing down. So when you do a breathwork practice, you're combining both and you're giving the body the chance to recover and heal itself. And that's a lot of why the box breathing or the slow breathing or the apps are so popular, because it's a short term, like little boost in your mood and your energy, just by oxygenating yourself properly. But when you do the longer journeys, there's more magic that happens in that the extended period of time with all of the oxygenation, it allows your body to just rest and literally reset. So by breathing in that pattern, not only do we have all this massive push of hormones that begin flowing through your body to make you feel good, but your system and your organs start to respond in a way of releasing all of the programming and all of the stress and the anxiety and the energy that we hold so tightly within ourselves, just starts to literally dissolve and let go. And that's where the longer breathwork journeys really have such a huge benefit, because it's literally like a reboot for your nervous system, particularly people with PTSD or high levels of anxiety. These longer journeys can really be a lifelong change for you.
Yeah. Wow, that's powerful, Jessica. And I know that the type of breath work you do combines actually more than just the breath, right?
Yes.
With guided meditation, with theta, binaural beats. Can you walk us through a bit of that and why that adds an extra layer of benefit?
Absolutely. So there is traditional breath work, like literally without guidance. If you laid down and you breathed in a conscious connected breath pattern and circular breath pattern for a long time, you'll get some results with it. But for me, I needed a little bit more. I tried meditating. I tried breath work per se, and the simplicity of it for many years. I have severe ADHD, and for me to focus on like one thing was so challenging for me. And then one day I was at a retreat, and someone said, "Hey, let's try this breath work." He put on music, and I was like, "Oh, what's that?" And there's music, and then he's like, "Breathe this way." And then he started coaching with this active coaching with his voice, and all of these things were happening. And for the first time ever, after about 45 minutes, I was like, there's no noise in my head. There
Mm.
was no voices talking. There was no busy. There was no like, I got to do this. I got to run and do that. What's going on over here? Like, it was just the first time I experienced silence. And it was amazing. And I was like, how do I learn more about that? And then I ended up training with the company and becoming a breathwork facilitator with them. So it's just allowing yourself the space to trust in the process and letting go. And then the rewards are just amazing.
Oh, they are. I can attest to that. I've done quite a few with you so far, and
Yes.
I wanted to touch on something that I mean I had the chance to experience, right? Because I've done them in person with you first. Then I'm in Canada, you're in Florida, so pretty big distance, and we've done quite a few virtually. What have you seen as the biggest differences between someone doing it in person with you or someone doing it virtually in terms of like benefits or how it actually progresses?
Sure. Online, it works. You're on your own. So some people, they don't go as deep in the online because they don't feel as safe as if they were with someone right there. So that's usually the first part with the online. It's like, I'm all alone, I'm home. What if something happens? That just that kind of safety mechanism that we have built in. Even for experienced breathers, it's like always the group and the hands-on. When I can work with you energetically, I also am trained in theta, so I do breath work, I do theta, all of that. There is sound healing and frequencies that are mixed into my music tracks. When we do the breath work online, we always use headphones so that you can get the full benefit of that. But the in-person experience is a little bit different. One, I have my hands on you. We're using essential oils. I use many, many sound healing tools like crystal bowls, tuning forks, rain sticks, drums, actually physically moving on your body. In a couple weeks, I'm heading out to get trained in didgeridoo healing, which will be coming into my work as well. So, just the in person experiences, the safety, and we have a lot of physical vibrations and energy that we can work with your body because you're right there in person.
Yeah, and actually, that part blew me away as well because there's so much being combined, and there's so many, like you said, so much going on that your monkey brain literally gets out of the way because it's like, wow, this is amazing. It's just magical. That's the only way I can describe it myself. And like you, I'm someone that had a big challenge in the past to quiet the mind down. Now I can meditate and quiet the mind down. And breathwork was the first way for me to actually get there and realize that it's possible, right? Because until you know it's possible, like really know, it's tough to trust yourself together.
Yeah, it's your brain's not used to it. We're not used to. There's nowhere in our society that says go slow. Like
Yes,
nowhere. Like even like literally the street signs on the highway that say go slow, somebody graffitied them because it does not apply to our world and where we're at. It's like go, go all the time. If you want to succeed, if you want to win, if you want to get there, you must go, 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 keep going, right? And there's no allowance in our culture for it to just say pause. Or even if you say like, oh, I meditated for 2 hours today, people be like, where do you get the time for that? You know, it's like, well, because when you slow down you make more time, but people don't
exactly.
understand the space of that at all until you do understand the space of that. You know, you have to be bold enough and brave enough to actually step into it and try it, and then you're like, aha, that's what they meant.
And everyone listening, play back what Jessica just said. You gotta slow down sometimes to then what? Create more time to do everything you want.
Yeah.
And if I mean that's we could end the episode right there. I mean that's such a valuable piece of advice because we don't realize that to actually get further we need to slow down at times. We get to slow down. And breathwork, meditation, all these tools that have been around for thousands of years can help you get that. It's not going to be your cell phone. It's not going to be a video on YouTube. It's going to be something like this.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, I'm like high dopamine girl. Like I can scroll Facebook all day long and be happy with my dopamine and go about my day. But it's like, where do you pull yourself back and, you know, go within? Because that's where all the answers are. You know, I say in my work, we call it know your knowing.
Now you know. Yeah, that's beautiful. Tell us more. Okay, let's drop into that. What does it mean to how actually? Okay, what does it mean to know your knowing, and then how do we get there?
Yeah. So know your knowing is like that gut feeling, that intuition that you know you always have. Like how many times have you been like,
Yeah.
oh, I knew in my gut that wasn't right, but I went anyway, or I did it anyway, or I didn't listen, or I should have listened, or you know, you have that. We all have that innate knowing within us, not like a futuristic like fortune teller or psychic, but our bodies are energy and our brain, our heart, everything. And when you connect your brain and your heart energy together, it creates this web that literally connects with everything around it, like a satellite dish. So you can truly know where to go, what to do. You know, people rely on fortune cards or fortune tellers or all these things, but what you have inside of you is already there. If you just slow down enough. Take a deep breath, slow down, and really learn to connect with that inside part of you. It's not scary in there. It's actually quite nice.
Hey, it's Konstantin here, and I want to take a brief moment to truly thank you for being a part of this incredible journey of transformation. You are the reason we are creating this content. I see you and I appreciate you. Your support truly means the world to me. I want to ask you for a small favor. I'd love for you to join our mission by hitting like, subscribe, or leaving a thoughtful comment or review. Your engagement helps others discover these insights, and together we can continue to unlock the power of authenticity and personal transformation. Thank you for being a part of this movement. Now, back to the episode. Yeah, you might be scared to get to the first layer, right? The one that's trying to keep you awake. But once you get in, like you said, it's beautiful. And I love the analogy used because at the same time, I look at my life, and because I have so much noise everywhere, it's easy to then ignore that voice, that intuition, that knowing, because it's just another one of those noises that are in your life. But
Hmm.
once you slow down and you realize, wait a second, it's not noise, it's actually guidance, it's helping. You don't need to be a religious person, you don't need to be a spiritual person to know that there's something there and there's something that you can explore further.
Yeah, it really is. It's almost like making peace within yourself. So for me, I think that the slowing down was a fear because I felt like I had so much trauma in my life that if I slowed down enough, I would think about it and it would come back
Mhm.
and it would be too much. So I realized how much I was avoiding slowing down and constantly being in the doing and the keeping and the running and the everything that I was doing because I didn't want to be with myself in
Wow,
that way.
so powerful, Jess. And I can 100% relate with that, and I'm sure many in the audience will as well, because how scary is it to be with your own thoughts at the beginning when you haven't done a bit of the work together? I know it was super scary for me, and it sounds like it's very similar for you. And a lot of us have our own version of trauma or things that we're not looking to see. But then you realize that once you sit down and you go through that process, it's not actually as painful as you thought it would be. And not only is it not painful, at least from my experience, I'm curious to see yours, Jess, it's not that it's not painful, but it's also once you go through it, like an illusion, it disappears and no
Hmm.
longer bothers you, which is like
Yes.
you released it. It's like, wow.
Yeah, it's like going within to let it go. Like I literally was so terrified of slowing down because I thought that everything horrible that had happened to me, I would have to relive it. You know, traditional talk therapy for me was going through the same story and explaining it to a therapist again and again. And I was like, I just cannot do that anymore. I am not going within. I am not talking about it. I am just going to keep running from it.
Yeah.
And that, so the thought of slowing down and going within my own thoughts and sitting with them was like, I'm going to die. Like, I literally, my nervous system was convinced that I was going to die if I did that. And then it was slowly moving into how can I take care, loving care and connection with my nervous system so that I feel safe to look at my thoughts. And I found that when I felt safe, those thoughts that I were so afraid of weren't actually that bad at all. It was actually loving and caring for myself to bring those thoughts, to bring those traumas back into my awareness from the space of inner child of like, I'm going to hold you and I'm going to hug you and I'm going to show you how much you are loved no matter what happened to you. And it's okay. You're safe now. And that was really the process for me that just shifted everything. Like the anxiety went away. I was able to sleep. I wasn't like, I couldn't focus. Literally, part of my story and the moment where I said, this is effing enough, I cannot go on this
Mhm.
route anymore, is I was driving on I-4, which is like one of the worst highways in the world. It's famous in Orlando for traffic and accidents. And I found the nose of my car going under an 18-wheeler
Ooh.
at 80 miles an hour. And I was so on autopilot with stress and anxiety that I did not even see the 18 wheeler until it was almost too late. So I flicked the wheel and ended up in the grass on the side of the highway, crying my eyes out like, what if my kids were in the back seat, or worse? What if my kids were left without me? What am I
Mm.
going to do? And that was my defining moment. Like, enough is enough. I need to figure this out. I need to find a way to get better because I cannot do this anymore.
Wow, powerful there, Jess. And I know that your story is something else. So let's actually dive into it a bit because
Hmm.
this is part of it, but how you got to actually even find breath work and what you do today, because I know it wasn't an easy road to get there, far from it, but it got you to this point where you're not able just to heal yourself, but heal so many other beautiful souls and enable them to essentially achieve more and become who they were meant to be all along. So I wonder, what would you say was, besides this catalyst on how it, on one, was it 104 you said?
And besides that, like, I know there were other big starting points for you. What would you say were like the culmination of the various, I guess, challenges in your life to put you on this path?
Yeah, just the challenges. So, like the very beginning, like I knew nothing of personal development. I come from a really small town, almost an island. People are fishermen, my family, and very heavy family history of alcoholism and abuse. I grew up in a horribly abusive household. And, I went away to college and I had this idea that when you turn 18, you can leave and you don't have to come back and it's all going to magically get better because you're 18. Then I found myself in an abusive relationship. And then I was like, well, I'm just going to move. And then I found myself in another abusive relationship. And whew, it was a journey. And it was like, why does this stuff keep following me? Don't you just move and it goes away? Like I just thought in my limited thoughts. And then I found a personal development seminar with Tony Robbins, and I felt really called to go, and I didn't know why. And I ended up there and was like, this is amazing. Like, I had been trying to have a baby for 5 years, and the doctor said that everything was fine. And then myself and my husband at the time, we both were at the seminar. And when we went through a fear process, I realized that I had this deep fear of being a bad parent because I grew up in such a violent home that I was terrified of my parenting skills. And so, literally 2 months after that event, I was expecting my first baby. And that for me was confirmation that you don't have to continue being who you were raised as, or you don't have to continue being your past, that you have a choice to change. And so that was the first time that I was ever exposed to any of that. And I was turned on. Like, tell me more. And I started reading books and learning. And I became like, in that moment, that was the switch that like really flipped on the seeker in me. And I was like, I need more, I need more. And I found myself a year and a half later, literally sitting in a job interview with Tony Robbins' wife to be hired as their personal assistant. And it was kind of surreal because, like, how did I get here? Like, what was the pieces of like small town girl with fisherman parents from bad home, really rough, to sitting with Tony Robbins' wife being interviewed for a job. And it was just like this click. And what she was saying to me was that there were so many things that they look for someone to be inside their world, because it's very intimate. Being a personal assistant means that you're with them in their personal space all the time. And she was explaining all of these qualities. And she says it's really hard to find and fill this position because it's so unique. And she said that they needed someone who had sensory acuity, extremely high levels of sensory acuity. Someone who had 360-degree vision and could see around them all the time. Someone who could diffuse a situation before it even began. Someone who could see what someone's needs were and respond and react to them before they even requested them. And so as she was going down this list of these super qualities that she felt that I had, what was going on in my mind was, oh, these are all the things that I hated about myself, because these are all the things that were exhausting for me because I needed to have high levels of sensory acuity to know when I was going to get killed or threatened, like what was coming at me. Or I needed to have 360-degree awareness to know when my abuser was coming from behind. I needed to know how to diffuse a situation when my drunk stepdad was going to come at me with yet another screaming fit, or all of these different things. So all of these things that she was telling me that was a gift that brought me to that very moment were all the things that I literally spent 25 years of my life hating. Wow. And wishing that they didn't exist within me. And so it's that moment, that very moment, where I realized that life doesn't happen to you. It happens for you. And I was able to embrace all that had happened to me that was so difficult in my life and so painful until that moment, to realize how it had now turned around into this opportunity for me to be in this position, and I accepted the job, and I traveled the next 7 years as the backstage manager for Tony Robbins. And that really opened up my eyes to a whole world of healing and personal development and just pure magic.
Wow, Jess. I knew parts of the story, but that's going even deeper. That's so beautiful. And I mean, there's so many things we can touch upon that. I want to highlight two things that stood out for me as, oh, I can't believe you said that. That's so amazing for the audience, right? The number one is just because I tell you change the environment and things will get better, it won't. If you don't change yourself, if you don't look at yourself, you're gonna recreate that environment. Literally earlier today, Jess, I was talking to a friend of mine about how 7 years ago when I made my big move and I went through my divorce and all those things, I thought that by just letting go of like whatever things were holding me in the past there, magically everything will turn better. And of course I recreated the same environment where I was now, which was so much farther away than the other place. And I didn't realize in the moment, and it sounds like you had to go through the same lesson, and most of us do as well. And that's such a powerful reminder. And the other realization you made there, that all those challenges, things you went through, they actually had a lot of positives in them, which of course in the moment you couldn't see.
Mm-hmm.
Things happened for you, and that brought you to where you are. Well, at least at that point in time, right, and where you are today. That's magical, because I know I'm not sure about any of you listening right now, but how many times do you say this is happening to me versus happening for me? I know I was doing it a lot before, and now it's like, ooh, this bad thing is happening, quote unquote bad. How is this for me? How am I co-creating this? Right? That I know you're a master at that, Jess. You're a master at that now.
It is. It took time. It took a lot of hard lessons with that. I remember in part of the Tony Robbins seminar, he asked someone, "Do you like surprises?" And of course, people are like, "Oh, yes, I love surprises." And he looks at them and he goes, "Bullshit. You only like the surprises that you want."
True,
And
true,
that's like the greatest way to explain it, right? Like you said, quote unquote, bad. Like, it's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not what you desire in that moment to have happen to you. So, like, thinking of it in terms of that, like, well, this is not what I desire right now in this experience. Well, what is it that you desire? We don't spend enough time thinking about what we want. We focus so much on what we're not getting or what we're not receiving or what our expectations are, instead of, well, what do you really want?
What do you really want? Let's spend time there. Pull it from the future.
Yeah, like,
Beautiful. So you spent 7 years with the Robbins family. I mean, I can imagine those were some magical years.
yes.
But then they weren't easy in your life, because I know you were going through some difficult stuff as well as you were progressing to this.
Yeah, it was, this blend of like, you're in a sea of magic and life is happening for you and moving in ways that you didn't expect, for sure. And as I grew, I was encouraged in the Tony world. I started teaching video marketing and coaching. Next thing I know, I'm on stages, I'm featured in a worldwide launch, I'm teaching for Tony Robbins Business Mastery on how to create YouTube videos. I wrote a book. All these amazing things are happening in my life, and some unamazing things were happening in my life as my space grew. My husband experienced the death of his mom, and he just didn't recover from it. He came through depression, and even though we had access to some of the best people in the world for healing and dealing with that, my ex-husband, he made a choice not to, and ultimately he took his own life, which left me with two very small children to take care of. My boys were 8 and 1.5 at the time.
Wow.
And it was utter destruction. He tried to set our home on fire. He set my business on fire. And he left me homeless, with no identity, and broke and without a husband after 18 years of marriage. So it was hard, really hard. And I was angry.
I can only imagine. So how do you take something as tragic as that and turn it around to what you're doing right now and say, you know what, it happened for me?
It took a while. It really did. You go through this shock, and it's like, what just happened? Like, literally, I woke up one day and it was all gone, burned, gone, you know? And it was this process of grieving what I wanted our life to be, grieving what it was, grieving the future that I saw for my children that was no longer there. It was like this tremendous grief process, grieving for who I used to be and grieving for who I was then, because I had transformed. There was like literally 1,000 iterations of myself in the last 7 years since he passed. And still transforming in so many ways. So it was really anger at first, and shock, and then sadness, because grief is not linear. I mean, it comes and goes. And there are still days like I'll have a memory and I'll just cry, and that's okay. It's okay to feel. And I started to look at, how can I make good out of this? Like, this happened and I can't change it and I can't go back. And it was really awful. But what can I do moving forward to make this an experience? What can I be an example, or how can I help others so that maybe things don't go so far for them? And I started healing myself with many different things, EMDR and hypnosis and NLP and all different types of things, various forms of meditation, which didn't work for me at first, and breath work and all kinds of stuff, to just kind of find myself again. Because when you have something really big like that happen, you lose.
Yeah.
You lose who you are, and it's like you got to recreate your identity. But it's also coming from the place of, I totally lost who I was, and I got to create my identity in the way that I wanted to. Again, focusing on what do you want instead of what you're receiving. Because if it's not in alignment with your expectations, then you just lose.
You do. You do.
Yeah. So it was really that. And then, about a year ago, I was sitting after a deep breath work and journaling, and this rage came up in me. Like, why is this happening? Why did I have to go through so much? Well, I'm just one person, God. I am just one person here, one body, and I have been through so much of like 10 lifetimes. Why me? What is this? And I was just raging and allowing it to flow and come out, and moving my body to let these feelings come out and release. And the message came through, knowing you're knowing, and just in that pause and allowing that to come through, it was really clear. And it said, you went through those experiences to learn all of the languages that you needed to learn to speak to those who are waiting for your help.
So powerful. Wow, so powerful, Jessica. I know you've been able to help so many people, I mean, throughout your life, and especially now with the various breathwork journeys and everything else that you do.
Yeah.
So powerful. So, what do you see yourself going from here with everything that you've learned and with the breathwork now? Because now you incorporated with, like you said, sound healing and vibration and theta and like so many beautiful things. And now the cosmic floats, which for those listening, I'll let you tell more so I don't spoil it, but it's pretty cool. It's as cool as it sounds, right? Cosmic float. I mean, that, yeah.
Yeah, so we have a series of different events. Like, as Konstantin mentioned in the beginning, him and I met at a firewalk training. So we are both certified firewalk, board break, arrow break facilitators, to help bring people through the experience of, anything is possible.
Yes.
And I really, am focused in my work on helping people to believe, instead of impossible, I'm possible, and looking at how you can get yourself there. Because when you're in this nervous system, chaos, you can't even think. You can't even think beyond what your next step is going to be. And I know what that feels like, because I lived like that for years in just absolute terror. And when you come out of that and you can think clearly again, there's just so much light and joy, and just your whole body, even the colors that you see change. And so I really do the work to create experiences for people, whether it's a fire walk, a board break, or the cosmic float, as you alluded to. So that's kind of my summer party that we're doing right now. I saw it on TikTok. Somebody had a bunch of people floating on airbeds in a pool, and they were doing sound healing on them. And I was like, oh, I have all those airbeds in my breathwork studio. I just need a pool. And so this idea kind of came together, and we facilitated an event. And I was like, well, if we're going to do sound healing, we might as well do breathwork too and add it in. And then I can take all my bowls and fill them with water and put crystals in them, and then we can place them on people's bodies and we'll vibrate in the water, and we'll just do this whole magical thing. Oh, and then it has to be at night under the stars with the sunset, and we'll put candles everywhere. And so my friends were like, my team that I have that works with me is just like, oh, here she goes. We don't know what we're doing, but we're gonna go there and it's gonna be magical and we're gonna have fun with it. And so we did, and we created this thing called the Cosmic Float. And I think we have 4 of them scheduled over the summer, and we're working on a few inquiries to put that together. So it's been fun.
I
Yeah.
can imagine. I can't wait to try it myself. I mean, oh my god, it's been magical every time I had a chance to work with you and have the breath works. And of course, for those listening, you don't have to be local where Jessica is. I mean, for the cosmic float, yes, but for breathwork and stuff, you can do it virtual, and I can attest it's still very powerful. I've done both, and
Yeah.
yes, while you would want to be in person, you can do it virtually, and it can easily help you on whatever path you're on right now to bring more clarity, to bring you to a place where you realize you have the answers within and you don't have to seek them externally, and a place of healing and a place of forgiveness. I mean, there's so many things you were able to facilitate for me, Jessica. I mean, we could probably talk for 10 minutes just listing things that I've been able to go through myself, but it's so powerful. And I mean, when I was in January in Florida for the other event, and I attended your group ceremony, and then we had one private. I mean, those two alone are the most transformative ceremonies, I guess, rituals that I've ever done. And I've done plant medicine quite a bit. And
Oh,
this is at least on par, if not, much stronger, right? And that's the power of this, right? Because if you're against plant medicine for whatever reason, religious or otherwise, or personal, this requires nothing. Just an open mind, right? Just, I guess an
just,
open mind would be good for everything, but
just some air.
but
Yeah. It's really just some air and a little bit of trust. A little bit of trust, a little bit of pixie dust.
right? And that's why,
Yeah.
because we're talking about why some people, when they do it virtually, they might not be as open to it. I think trust is a big part to it because I know that when I was doing it in at home, I was doing with my partner, so that was great. I had my dogs in the crate, but then I was always like, oh, I hope no one is going to knock on the door or ring the
Yeah.
doorbell. Or if you have kids or other people in the house, you're like, oh, I hope they don't bother me. But when I was in your private studio, I was like, okay, I'm at your mercy. I mean, if someone comes, you're going to deal with it. I don't care.
Yeah.
It's not right. So that there's that added benefit to doing it in person or doing it in a
Absolutely.
place where someone holds the space for you. Because I know that with plant medicine, for example, there is such a thing where people are watching over you and stuff, and this should be no different, right? So
Yeah.
you see a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
is.
potential value there as well if you're doing it from home. And I know you do this weekly, right? Virtually.
Yep. I actually have an app. We're going to be on the App Store any day now. I'm waiting for my approval from the
Yeah.
Play Store and the Apple Store. So my app is
Right.
Rewired to Rise. Yep. And we have recordings on there for those of you who are experienced and want to take a journey on your own at any time. And then I go live every single week in my group. So those of you who want a little bit of hand holding and support, I'll be there to guide you live on the journeys. And we do 4
Yeah,
journeys a month.
that's beautiful. And again, we'll have those links in the show notes as well. I'm curious to touch on a part that people don't usually talk enough about, which is integration, right? So you go through one of these beautiful journeys, and a lot comes up. Usually it does, right? If you, especially if you give it your all, or even 80%, you're going to get a lot out of it. What has been your experience with the integration aspect, and what people should be focusing on versus what they might be focusing on by default?
Yeah, so the integration, I actually learned a lot from this because when I first started, I thought I was doing really great follow up. I would text everybody and be like, "Oh, how are you doing?" And everyone would be like, "I'm great." And then that was it. And I'd be like, they're great. They had a good journey. And then like weeks later or months later, someone would be like, I've been feeling this, and they didn't know how to tell me what was experiencing them, because really they didn't know. Like the integration sometimes can be huge. Like, wow, I feel so different. I have so much space in my head, or I have space in my body, or different things like that. Or it can be subtle. Like I had a client call me and she was like, 3 weeks ago when I did that breath work, I thought it did nothing and it was just hokey pokey. But I was at Publix today and I realized that I didn't yell at anyone when I went grocery shopping. And I was like, oh, well, do you often yell at people when you go grocery shopping? She's like, all the time. I hate it. It makes me mad. I get ragey. And I'm like, oh. And she's like, yeah, I made it all the way to the checkout line. And even the lady in front of me was being really slow and I didn't care.
Magic, right?
Yeah, like, breath work isn't like, if you do breath work, this one thing will happen to you, because we're such accumulation of our stories and our beliefs and our behaviors and our truths and our untruths and all of that, who create who we are as a being. And we're all unique. So for me to say breath work will do this for you, would be an untruth, because everyone has their own experience of what the breath work will be for you. And that, so some people it's huge, like they'll have a massive release and they'll fly high. Other people, no joke, will feel like crap for a couple days after the breath work, because the body is purging, and letting go of all of those things. And then after that, they're like, that was amazing. I feel so much better. So it's different, for every single person. And even I'll work with the same person and we could do the same exact breathwork journey more than once, and it will be a completely different journey for them because they're in a different time and space.
Yeah, and
So
that's what we did too, right? Because the
yeah.
one in North Carolina back in October was the same one we did in Florida in January.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very different. I was in a
Yeah,
different space,
different
not
time and
just
space.
physically, but mentally and emotionally and spiritually. I was way different, and it was like completely different. So there's so much fun. And I know you have many journeys, right? Because your journeys are tied to an intention, right?
Yes.
Like letting go of limiting beliefs, ancestral trauma, you name it. I'll let you speak to that. But that's so powerful, because this is something that's not like, yeah, you can do it once or twice with Jessica, but it's a practice you can bring into your life for life.
Yeah. And there is. And the journeys that I do that are guided with me are very intentional. Like you said, they're coached journeys on specific topics, whether it's like, what are your limiting beliefs around receiving an abundance? Or, is it stress and anxiety? And are we actually holding on to it, with our beliefs around it? So there's so many different journeys that I have that are guided. But then there's also journeys where I say nothing and you guide yourself, and I'm just there to help and support. And those are the kind of my favorite ones, because it's amazing what comes up, in those journeys, because it's all
I
you.
gotta do one of those with you, because I haven't done one of those, I don't think.
Yeah,
Uh,
no, you haven't. Yeah.
yeah, 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 that's
Those
the
are
next
those
step
are
for
just
us.
more silent. I actually shut up.
Yeah, that's powerful.
And I just give
I
you
mean,
gentle nudges along the way, but it's the whole story that's created when you're in that state is all you,
yeah,
where
that's
you're at.
beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, I mean, I'm a visual person, right? So for me, it became very visual in every journey. And I was following the guidance through the headphones, but it was creating my own stories, right? It was bringing up my own
Yeah.
memories and my own feelings and emotions and thoughts and beliefs, so that they were eventually getting broken down and enhanced or replaced, or however you want to look at it. So that's powerful. Just wow, I've learned more stuff now, and I thought I knew a lot of this because you and I talk quite a bit. So I want to
Yeah,
thank you for that.
of course.
Now, before we wrap it up, I'm curious to see if there are any other thoughts that come up for you to share with the audience, or with, of course, with anyone listening, on how they can take their life to the next level.
Yeah, if you're interested in work with me, you can just head over to my website. Everybody, that heads over there in my app, I actually have some free journeys for you to try. There's 5-minute ones if you want to kind of stick your toe into the water and dabble about, and see what it's like in just 5 minutes with one of my journeys. Or I actually have a full 1 hour long, what's called a parasympathetic journey. And this is my journey that I am most passionate about, because this particular journey is a reboot and reset of your nervous system, which is such a gift to humanity. In every way, shape, or form, it's safe for pretty much anyone to use because you're breathing through your nose, but it allows you to gift yourself the time and the space to really reset, reboot, and care for your nervous system. Because we feel and experience everything in our lives through our nervous system. So if you take good, loving care of it, it tends to shift everything in our lives for the better.
Oh, yes, big time. And what I want to address as well, really quick, for those in the audience that may not know, because your breathworks are guided, most of them, right, like you mentioned, especially the free ones, it's like a guided meditation with extra benefits, right? It's kind of like getting the one scoop of ice cream, but then getting all the toppings on top of it, and a nice cone. I always like to get the waffle cone, right? So that's kind of how I see this.
A little cherry and whipped cream. It's extra,
Yes, there we go. There we
extra,
go.
extra.
Jessica, this has been such a pleasure. I want to thank you for coming on the show. And for those
Absolutely.
listening, you gotta check Jessica out. I mean, the stuff she does, literally transformational.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us on this exploration of personal transformation. Your presence and engagement are at the heart of what we do, and I sincerely appreciate you, your time, and thirst for knowledge, inspiration, and empowerment. Please consider showing your support by hitting like, subscribe, leaving a comment, or writing a review. Your engagement not only fuels our mission, but also helps others discover these insights. For more daily guidance on personal transformation across the mental, emotional, spiritual, and physical realms, be sure to visit our website at unleashthyself.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Unleash Thyself Today, TikTok and YouTube at Unleash Thyself, and there we post daily content designed to inspire and empower you on your journey. If you have any specific thoughts, questions, or feedback, I truly value your input. I would love to hear from you. Together, we're building a community united in authenticity and purpose. Once again, thank you for being a part of this movement. Until next time, continue to embrace your true self and live a life on purpose, with purpose. See you in the next episode.